A very good evening to you from across East Africa. This is KTN Prime this Thursday evening. Thank you very much for making the time to be with us. My name is Yvonne Okwara Matole. Our bulletin starts right now with a focus on the most shocking news coming out of Kenya's national carrier. Abi Agina is joining me tonight, and he will be breaking down just how far Kenya Airways has come over the last couple of years and what this loss means for the national carrier. So he will be joining us with that comprehensive report in just a moment. But we also have these are the top stories lined up for you on KTN Prime tonight.
The loss after tax is 25.743.
Clearly, with the results we have shared with you, we have been in turbulent time.
Shocking KQ losses. Nothing to be proud of for Kenya's struggling carrier.
The fact that the exams will be administered in an orderly way, that no one student will have a leakage, is what is leading to this unrest.
Students are scared of exams. Stakeholders dig into wave of school unrest. A darling of the Nigerians, Kenyan priest charms one of the worst slums in Africa. Thank you for joining us. Our sign language interpreter tonight is William Silla. We start off with our top story tonight that is shocking many Kenyans and indeed East Africans across the region today, going down in history as the day Kenya's national carrier posted the biggest ever loss of a listed company in the country. The 29.7 billion shilling gross loss we're in is not in reverse and would give Safaricom a run for its money. Instead, KQ now goes to the bottom of the list, renowned for all the wrong reasons. Adelaide Changola tells us how the country's national carrier lost its wings.
The day is Thursday, the 30th of July.
Negative. Now, unless someone corrects me.
And despite closing its books 4 months ago, Kenya Airways is just releasing its full year earnings. And at 8:15 a.m., KQ delivers the bombshell that explains the delay and sets a new record in Kenya's corporate history.
The loss after tax is 25.743 against last year's loss of 3.3.
The airline, part owned by Air France KLM, has been hit by new plane purchases, which increased both fleet and financing costs. Kenya Airways has increased its fleet, but the increase has failed to deliver the returns expected, leaving KQ bleeding money.
There is a very big investment in this watershed year in relation to the fleet that we have brought in, but at a time when the market is not anywhere in our favor.
Ironically, while other players in the airline industry were enjoying the benefits of lower crude oil prices, Kenya Airways had to contend with a 5.8 billion shilling loss owing to an unfavorable fuel hedge. On top of that, the Pride of Africa continues feeling the impact of travel advisories that have crippled the country's tourism sector.
We have very traditionally, as a carrier, really had incoming flights that are really premised on the fact that this is a main destination that tourists are coming through to. But because of the security challenges and travel advisories we have had, and this is why I say we have increased our connectivity, particularly in the region, to be able to sell beyond the hub of Nairobi. And
this has seen KQ's working capital, forcing the airline to rely on loans to remain afloat. KQ has short-term borrowings of 43.6 billion shillings, while its negative equity position means the airline is technically insolvent.
It's the lenders who actually own the business. So essentially shareholders are really out of the picture, especially in the context that we're not entirely sure about how robust their balance sheet is, the assets that are currently remaining, and that from a revenue perspective, we're not seeing the visibility of how they're going to turn around the airline.
KQ has sought a 20 billion shilling bridge loan from Africa Exim Bank, but that too offers only temporary relief.
And we have an agreement which will be completed shortly on raising a bridge loan of $200 million to help finance the business in the intervening period while we structure the long-term perspective.
They really have no other option. They just require a lot of capital. It's almost like rebuilding the airline from scratch.
According to Eric, this would allow the government to reposition Kenya Airways, allowing it to compete effectively with Gulf carriers that are highly subsidized.
I think everyone now is almost admitting that this airline is not really for profitability. It would really be more to do with providing connections to Kenya and so forth. And really the only investor who would work under those conditions would probably be the national government of Kenya.
This is not a business. Analyst, what the hell are you going to talk about my investment and what's my return? There is no return. There is rescue. Let's rescue the ship.
From Gunze, however, he remains resolute the airline can still recover from the slump and regain its place as the pride of Africa.
Clearly, with the results we have shared with you, we have been in turbulent times. But as I said, for me, that's a watershed, because we need, as an airline, to come out of that and really climb to the right altitude.
Adelaide Chongole, KTN News.
In association with Thika School of Medical and Health Sciences.
All right, so this was a trending topic all day today, and it had many wondering with the hashtag KQ rebound, because it was anything but a rebound today. So on our big question today, it's not really a question. We're asking you to comment on the 29 billion shillings loss by Kenya Airways. Your comments are already coming in even before the big question. You can do that at KTN News, at Yvonne Okwara. You can also SMS us on 22155, and we will sample your comments throughout this bulletin. And we're staying on KQ in just a moment. We look forward to your feedback.
Today, in any of our branches countrywide, Thika School of Medical and Health Sciences, nurturing professional excellence.
All right, now as we look forward to your feedback, let's understand how KQ got here. For some, the signs were there. For others, it's a total shock with those results that were announced today. And our business reporter, Abby Agina, joins us this evening. Abby, a huge loss. KQ is not rebounding. As they said, it's turbulent times for them. But how did we get here?
Interesting question, Yvonne. For the fact is that KQ is actually the third largest airline in Africa, and it's a sad day for corporate Kenya with such numbers, and we just want to take you now through how KQ actually got itself in this situation. We begin with giving you a quick recap. They've just announced a profit, actually a loss of 25.7 billion shillings. No company in Kenya has ever reported such losses, and KQ attributes these dismal results to the high operating costs. Some of the costs that the airline has been facing include the wage bill and of course the issue around hedging of its fuel costs. They're the biggest issue around how KQ has been performing. We now want to do a quick trend analysis. Let's take a quick look at how the company has been performing. In 2011, KQ posted a 3.5 billion shilling net profit. Those were good times under the stewardship of former CEO Titus Naikuni. 2012, not still a rosy picture, actually posting 1.6 billion shillings in net profit. And in 2013, this is when the rain began beating Kenya Airways. They posted a net loss of 7.8 billion shillings. They actually issued a profit warning. 2014, same story, 3.4 billion shillings in net losses. And now we're talking about 25.4 billion shillings, the biggest ever net loss reported in the history of corporate Kenya. Now, let's take a quick comparison with other national carriers across the region. We have Air France, we have Air Italia, Qatar Airways, Emirates, Ethiopian Airlines. These are just but some of the airlines that have been posting good numbers. Of course, generally the aviation industry has been facing turbulent times, but they haven't been hit as hard as KQ has been hit. So, looking at those carriers, most of them are supported by the government, and actually their costs are subsidized, and they actually don't declare the results. So this sort of shields them. But either way, it basically tells you that KQ is not in good territory. So one of the other biggest concerns that came out in today's briefing when KQ was actually releasing its results was that it has been facing stiff competition, especially when it comes to its low-cost carriers. One of the low-cost carriers that is actually competing at neck to neck with KQ is kulala.com, and also Fly Dubai, Fastjet. These are some of the local carriers that KQ is in the battle with when it comes to the competition for passengers. Other than this, we've also seen a lot of other issues coming up around some of the failed national carriers. Let's take a quick look at Ghana. Their national carrier was in such a situation, they ended up in a situation where they were bankrupt. The other issue was around Cyprus as well as Malaysia Airlines. These are some of the airlines that didn't perform quite well, which affected their books, and eventually they had to shut down. And that's why KQ has been operating quite a lot in some of these routes. And the biggest issue that came out today in the press conference was around how can KQ turn around its strategy when it comes to taking back the airline back to profitability, Yvonne. So we have also an analyst with us just to help us understand this. We'll be discussing more of this later on in the bulletin, Yvonne.
Yes, during the business news, 25.7 billion shillings. And if now we're saying the competition is airlines like Kulula Air and Fly 540, a very sad day, like you said, for corporate
turbulent times as well as for shareholders, Yvonne.
That's right, not just in Kenya, but around the region. Like you said, KQ is the third largest airline in Africa?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
With over 61 destinations.
Imagine that. So, Abby Agina will be joining us later in the business bulletin, and like you said, that analysis is also coming up. And we continue to remind you to send in your comments on this loss announcement by Kenya Airways, at KTN News, at Yvonne Okwara, at Abby Agina as well, and we'll be reading your comments on that. So make sure you join him later for the business news. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's move on to other stories, and we want to cross borders to Nigeria now. A Kenyan priest who was posted to one of the worst places one can dare live is the darling of slum dwellers in Lagos City, thanks to his gifted hand in community work. Father Emmanuel Chukwuku Likoko is helping transform lives in a community whose living conditions are dehumanizing. And as our special correspondent Alex Chamada reports, Father Likoko expresses shock at how runaway corruption in Nigeria is sending innocent people to their graves.
I just know how to greet Kilo Day.
So far, yet so familiar. Father Emmanuel Sikuku Likoko, a priest with a humble beginning, brought up in Kitale in Kenya, walks with us through the Amukoko slums in Lagos.
Mama, how are you?
He introduces us to the area chief, Chief Latif Olatunji.
Nice to meet you. I'm a journalist from Kenya.
Oh, that's you're welcome.
Thank you.
As we come face to face with urban poverty in Africa's most populous city. The slums sprouted on a swampy area.
These are schools.
Here, it is normal for buildings to sink.
Inside,
Sanitation, drainage, all in a sorry state.
Well done.
Father Likoko's spiritual role in the meantime does not take a break.
In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, peace of the Lord. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. God bless you. Nona indio gata nyumbani huko chini. Kuna venye maji nakuja hivi kama sewage tu. And all that sewage in a gather like that, and then in a and all that in a flood sometimes and all that. Most of these places just shule schools, but you can't see them now. But it's the main mode of transport. Coming in, I was overwhelmed with the dirt, the number of people, the number of children, the crime and drug abuse, teenage pregnancy and all that. I was so much overwhelmed and all that. But I felt that yes, we needed to be here. And coming in, my own initiative is to build on the things that all the missionaries had already put in place. And that was to empower, to continue empowering the young people. We always encourage people to move out. Those who are really finding it so difficult, we encourage them to move out, satellite towns around Lagos, and sometimes we encourage them to go and look for better housing in those places. And some of them we encourage those who are very old those who are not doing anything in the city, we encourage them to go back to the village. And even young ones, we encourage to go back home. And when they reach home, if they settle down after around 6 months, 1 month or 2 months, when we assess the situation that they have adjusted, we can send them something little to start a small business at home. Because, you know, in Africa, there's always this rush towards the city. But, you know, when we move to the developed world, we find that, you know, you can do a lot even from home.
And if you've heard of flying toilets in some of Nairobi's slums, you ain't heard anything yet, says Father Likoko.
You'll find a culture here. In the morning, you'll see people with small containers or paper bags. Small containers, mostly they are carrying urine. And then the paper bags or other things, they are solid waste and all that. So basically people will live their life, they will use the front of their house to relieve themselves at night, and then in the morning when they are going at work they'll just throw the waste in the drainage. Death here is normal. You will never hear people cry and then you know that yes, there's death in that home and all that. No, the way you can be hearing maybe in a proper setup that you know somebody has died. Here somebody will die there and life goes on. Good to see you at school.
Yet authorities, both at local level and federal government level, seem to be doing little to upgrade slums in Nigeria.
A slum anywhere is an abandoned area because a responsible government cannot encourage the growth of a slum. And again, that is where the government gets their votes, that is where the government gets their money, that is where exploitation goes on. These are the people that can be easily used by a government. So you find that a government that is corrupt will be happy to have slum dwellers because they can use them as they want. But when it comes to votes, this is where they'll spend most of their time.
That's just a tip of the iceberg, as there are many informal settlements in Lagos with similar challenges in a country that boasts to be Africa's largest economy, an oil-producing country.
We have rich places, very rich, you know, really expensive mansions. You know, when you talk about the richest man in Africa is from Nigeria. When you talk about the really billionaires in Africa, they are more in Nigeria, but they are scattered. They are scattered, you know. Just to get a place like Karen, Lavington, joined to each other and all that, no, you can't get it here. There might be something breaking them in here and there, but you'll be finding some small enclaves for the rich and all that, but really wealthy.
Father Likoko there, daring abroad in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Alex Chamada, for that. Let's go back to our top story tonight, and it's from the shocking news from Kenya Airways now, and they're talking about high operating costs, the travel advisories that have beset the airline. And KQ CEO Mbuvi Gunze sat down exclusively with our business reporter Adelaide Changole to expound more on where the company is headed after the announcement today.
Kenya Airways has just announced a historic 25.7 billion shilling loss in the full year to April this year. And we're joined by Mbuvi Gunze, the CEO, to explain just what happened this year and what the company is doing to turn around its fortunes. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mbuvi. So you have just been in office for 7 months. How did you feel waking up in the morning knowing you were coming to deliver this result?
Remember that even in November, when we announced our results, it was very clear that we needed to prepare the future by doing certain actions because we could see the trend in results. I mean, it's not something that was difficult to foresee because we could see the trend. So when I think about how I woke up today, just like I do, my routine was the same as I do every day. It's only that instead of driving to the airport, I drove to the Intercont Hotel.
Right.
But with a mental preparation around the sentiments around the investors, the analysts, the journalists I'll be meeting today, and how I frame my message for where KQ is and what the potential of KQ is.
What would you say are the biggest issues facing KQ, and what brought about this loss that we are seeing today?
A couple of things, I think. Quality-wise, we've increased capacity in the period because we bought new assets. that capacity has not been matched with the uptake from a turnover point of view. So our turnover from a passenger point of view is more or less flat. We've grown the turnover from other sources, and that has increased. But when I talk passenger turnover, I think the other thing is the quality of passengers on board. When I see our increase from 3.7 million passengers to 4.2 million passengers, but the yield has declined, which speaks to the fact that we are not getting the kind of quality revenue that we would traditionally have gotten. And some of the reasons are clear. You know, when I look at, say, the European flows and the markets where travel advisories are, they normally have a higher quality revenue flow into our kind of markets than others. That has not helped. When I look at the fact that, for example, some of our West African numbers have reduced from August when we suspended our flights, those also have an impact. So some yield impacts there, but also exchange rates in our market have also been playing havoc. When you look at India, South Africa, on the euro, those also have an impact directly on the revenue line. From a cost line, probably not highlighting direct operating costs, because in spite of the increase in capacity, the costs remain broadly in line. Fleet costs, very strong increase, almost doubled. Two reasons. Clearly, with the new assets that we've brought in, we have, of course, more depreciation and more lease costs because we're in an investing period. The second part of that is the 5.7 billion write-off that we mentioned in the half year in relation to the impairment of the assets that we are actually selling. So that's a storyline around fleet costs.
KQ has a negative equity. Perhaps you can just explain to us what that means.
Negative equity itself is not wrong. I mean, the point that you've got to satisfy yourself is that you have the ability to pay your creditors and the liabilities that you have in the period ahead as they fall due. Because we've done two things. We have funded our program based on the extended debt that we have, short-term debt that we have on our balance sheet. But secondly, we have negotiated the bridge loan that will allow us to prepare ourselves for the longer-term capital structure. When you see negative equity because of some of those adjustments, what it means also is that we need to work on recapitalizing our business.
Mr. Mbuvi, you have announced the financing agreement with Afrexim Bank that will see you getting a $200 million loan from the bank to finance your operations. Perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about that.
So again, I come back to, you know, when you see something, you plan for it. In November, we said we were looking for a financial advisor. We announced that we got a financial advisor. We were finalizing the agreement. The short-term bridge is really to allow us the bridging time to prepare for the long-term funding. That was always a plan, recognizing that we need cash flow in the period to trade. As we restructure to look at what is the optimal capital structure for the business, both debt, carrying capacity that this business has, and equity. Again, talking to the shareholders. It takes time to do things like that. You have to go through a process, and we needed to buy time. That's why we went for the bridge loan.
Do you feel that KQ is getting full support from its primary shareholders, among them, KLM and the government?
We're engaging with our shareholders on a regular basis. We're having conversations. You saw that the government of Kenya also gave us some short-term debt in the month of June. So it's a very positive engagement. KLM is also engaging with us. So we have the right conversation. Of course, because we are a listed company, we have a lot of shareholders. But today in this conversation, in this short period, we have to really talk to the key shareholders. Then we will engage the other shareholders once we have a wider plan.
Right. Kenya Airways is selling some assets, including some of your 767s and some land in Embakasi. Perhaps you can just tell us how much you're planning to raise and what you plan to do with that money.
The net from all the asset sales, we should be raising somewhere like $100 million. If you take the land and the aircraft that we are selling, and that will go into funding the business. It's also part of the working capital of the business.
Let's look at Project Mawingu, something the Senate has said KQ expanded way too fast than it had capacity to absorb. Perhaps you can just tell us, what is a misstep from the side of KQ?
Mawingu is the project that has helped us to deliver the current fleet expansion that we have actually done. So it envisioned, it was a 10-year plan, and it was envisioned in phases. I think today we can look back and say, was Mawingu right, wasn't it wrong? Mawingu is what has delivered the current fleet expansion that we have done today. So we are now in a competitive position. The environment around us probably has changed, but doesn't change the vision behind the fact that you need to plan ahead.
What is the way forward? How excited are you, and what are you putting in place to ensure that you can actually emerge from this storm?
At the end of the day, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. You know, we cannot always say in a difficult environment that you take an optimistic view always, but you can say you have to do the job that has to be done, and that's my job.
An after-tax loss of 25.71 billion shillings. That's Kenya Airways tonight. It's not a question. We're asking you to comment on this 29 billion shillings loss. That is before tax, 25.7 after tax. What are your thoughts on that? Have a couple of interesting ones already. Julius Njogu says, you've done the math. You say it's the equivalent of losing 50,000 shillings a minute. That's unimaginable. Benson Lotuno, you say since Naikuni has gone, KQ made losses. This calls for scrutiny. Murithi Ramirez, you say KQ has now become position 2 after Mamia's Sugar Company. That big loss is unexplainable. You've used the hashtag corruption everywhere. Keep your comments coming in at KTN News, at Yvonne Okwara. Also SMS us on 22155, and we'll share your comments with Kenya and with the region. Now, speaking of the region, you remember on Sunday we broke the news here in the country of that attack, that bomb that exploded at Jazeera Hotel in Mogadishu. Right after the break, we'll be speaking with Justice Kisaulu, who's the manager of Jazeera Hotel, and he'll be telling us of his experience and just what is going on there. So do stay tuned for that and more. You're watching KTN Prime. Back in a moment. Thanks for staying with us on KTN Prime. Let's take you now to Somalia, where repairs have begun on the Jazeera Hotel, which was bombed on Sunday. The hotel, which is a favorite of Kenyans and embassy staff from other countries, is expected to be reopened soon after the repairs are done. Fatma Paula reports.
Rising from the ashes of the terror attack on Sunday, the Jazeera Palace Hotel is under repairs, and the management believes it will be up and running very soon. The doors of the world luxury Jazeera Palace Hotel remain closed. Before, this five-star hotel was one of Mogadishu's most secure hotels. Today, it lies in partial ruins, torn apart by Sunday's terror attack, an attack that caused the death of 15 people, including a Chinese embassy staff member, and injured more than 50 others. But this attack was not the first. In the past, this hotel, which is home to several embassies and is said to host foreign guests and the country's senior politician, has been the target of Al-Shabaab militants. In fact, in 2012, suicide bombers stormed the hotel where President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud was inside, and this recent attack is the third terror attack on the hotel just this year. Residents describing it as one of the worst in Mogadishu. Just across the street, about 30 buildings also collapsed. But the pride of the Somali capital did not go down without a fight. Only one side of the building appears to have been destroyed. The other remains unbowed.
This explosion has happened and it's supposed to damage our business. But what I can tell you, we will come out stronger than ever before. We will come out, and we will be operating as soon as possible, next few days.
As for now, the hotel remains under joint protection of Somali military and the hotel's armed security force. It will obviously take a while before things are back to normal in Mogadishu's landmark. Fatma Pole, KTN News.
As Fatma Pole says, it'll take a while, but we hope that that will happen soon for Mogadishu and Somalia. And we're now joined by Justice Kisaulu, who's the manager of Jazeera Hotel. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us tonight on KTN Prime. Now tell us, you are a manager of this hotel. Were you there when it went off? What was that experience like?
Yes, Linda, let me start by saying a word of condolences to the family, friends and relatives of who lost their lives there. We lost guests, colleagues and those of the local people. I was in the hotel when this attack took place, and for really it was a very bad experience. It took split seconds, about 5 seconds, and Jazeera Palace Hotel was no more. Yes.
Where were you? What were you doing? What did it sound like? Just, you know, sort of paint that picture for us.
Yes, I was in my office, and it happened, the blast happened about only 1 second. And I just saw windows flying, things flying, and in 5 seconds, life had changed.
And tell me, the buildings around the hotel, we understand, as far as 1 kilometer, a radius of 1 kilometer, all came down as well?
Yes, there was massive destruction. This was a very powerful bomb. And the effects were felt almost 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometers. Most of the building around the hotel came down, and also a lot of property was lost, life was lost. It was really bad.
Right.
Yeah.
You are not the only Kenyan that's working there. We understand you have staff, but also that the hotel caters to not just Kenyans, but to embassy staff. So describe to us the clientele of Jazeera Hotel and how important this hotel is in the capital of Somalia.
Our clientele mainly consists of senior government officials of Somalia, diplomats, senior business people, and also mostly NGOs. So these people, basically what they do in Somalia is to change the lives of the locals, work on stability, make sure there is progress and success in the Somali government.
And so that was obviously a big blow to a hotel that means so much in the capital?
Yes, especially for the people who don't believe in prosperity, people who don't believe in peace. For them, they felt offended by this hotel, and maybe that's why they launched the attack.
A lot of lives were lost. How does that make you feel? And we know there are repairs, and we'll get to the issue of repairs in a moment. But how does that make you feel knowing you were there, lives were lost on Sunday? Going back, what will that be like for you and the staff?
Where life is concerned, definitely everybody must be, I must be, it can't be the same. It can't be the same. I feel very bad. But we must, I always believe the poison, which doesn't kill you, it always leaves you stronger. So we, or I as a management, senior management of the hotel, what we are working on is to make sure these people are safe, to make sure these people, they come back, they are able to execute their duties, and we are able to provide a safe environment for them to do their duties.
That's right, and repairs have already begun, as we've seen in that story by reporter Fatma Pole. Tell us how soon, if you can, maybe give us an estimate of when Jazeera Hotel will be back up and running, and if there are any extra security measures you're going to take now.
Definitely, there's a lot of things which are going to change, especially in our standard operating procedures in terms of security. We are going to employ more equipment, more technology, more people, and in terms of going back to business, already about 40% of our rooms are in use. And within 10 days, we expect to be fully back, to be able to operate in full capacity.
Oh, in 10 days?
In 10 days, yes.
Okay.
Because we started the repair works a day after. That is on Monday, and we work it 24 hours, and we expect to be back in business fully operational in 10 days.
Okay, tell me, and this is a question I think that many Kenyans would like to know. You're not the only Kenyan who's there. And it's catering to a number of embassy staff from other countries. So a lot of Kenyans would like to know, especially in light of this attack, what made you go to Somalia? Many people would say Mogadishu is unsafe. That is, you know, a country where bombs are going off with the Al-Shabaab attacks constantly. That we hear about on a very regular basis. What would make you and the other Kenyans and other nationals from other parts of Africa go to do in Mogadishu?
The reason why I will continue being in Mogadishu is the people we serve, they are there primarily to change the lives of the local people. Children who are not going to school, soon they'll be going to school. Children who cannot afford medical services, soon they'll be there. No infrastructure, roads, I can see them coming. Simply through these people we host, the diplomats, the government officials, and the business people. They are basically they are going to change the economic lifestyle, social lifestyle of the Somali people. When that person or when the local people, their life is changed, to me I smile, I feel good, and they'll continue serving these people to change the Somali people.
And the Somali people embrace you as well?
Yes, they do. They are happy we are doing what we are doing now, because Jazeera Palace Hotel is on the hotel outside the airport compound. And this is where businessmen come and meet their locals. This is the only place politicians come and meet their fellow politicians. This is where diplomats can see can interact with the local people, can see where to support, where to give aid.
Right.
And I believe Jazeera Palace Hotel is totally very important. It has to be there, and we'll make sure it is there. The resilience, and that is the resilience of Somali people. We have to be back and working.
Indeed, and the resilience of you and your team as well. And we celebrate you today,
Yes.
Justice Kisaulu, the manager of Jazeera Hotel in Mogadishu, speaking to us about what that experience was like and reassuring us that they will be back there and Jazeera Hotel will be back up and running in just 10 days. Thank you so much for coming and for embracing, the situation that you work in. That is some good news for those of you watching us in Somalia tonight. We're taking a short break on KTN Prime. Stay with us. We'll be back in a few short moments.
Thank you for keeping it KTN. We now want to get into a conversation that is focused on getting some answers on how Kenya Airways got itself into this position. And joining me in studio right now we have Kevin Tuitoek, who's a macroeconomic analyst with Genghis Capital. Welcome, Tuitoek. Let's just first kick it off. How did Kenya Airways land in this territory?
Well, the Kenya Airways has faced a barrage of various both external and internal factors that has led to the 25.7 billion loss. First off, huge capital expenditure. We've all seen the new planes that they've acquired,
yes,
based on the Project Mawingu expansion program. Second of all, we've seen that not just Kenya Airways but the whole country has been affected by adverse travel advisories due to the effects of global terrorism. So definitely this has had an impact on the turnover for Kenya Airways. Definitely it's eaten up into the loss. Also we've seen that the numbers, especially on routes such as London to Nairobi, have had an impact of about 40% decline.
Yes.
So that's also had a huge impact. Possible also is the fuel. If we look into the balance, we can see unrealized fuel hedges. This is something that has also led to the balance sheet also going up by about 5 billion. So definitely if that was not taken into account, then we'd be looking at the figures differently.
Interesting. Still keeping with this, we've also seen the share price actually falling by close to 22%. What does this signal of KQ as a company, and what should shareholders be looking out for?
Well, this single day fall of about, it was the 22%, has seen the share price going to about 5.6. This is definitely concerns from investors who are a bit timid and seeing the historic loss. Basically worried about the future outlook of the company. It is natural. Definitely this is something that is worrying in the long term, because a company that is, suffice to say, servicing most of its expenditure based on debt is also going to face some long-term problems, especially noting that shareholders are looking as to whether they'll see a return on their investments within the next few years. So definitely this is some of the effects of the capital expenditure, but optimistic to say that it is on a J-curve basis, whereby we'll see a depreciation and possibly some appreciation within a few years.
Is it the best time to buy or sell?
I'd say KQ is a long-term buy if you are a long-term investor based on being an optimist due to the current situation. So based on some of the strategies that they hopefully will implement, there is some portended long-term buy capabilities with the share.
Looking at one of the other issues you've raised is the debt levels that the airline has been facing. We've seen that they actually took an approach where they got a loan of 200 million, which was coming in from the Africa Export-Import Bank. How will this really help the airline turn around from its loss-making streak to profitability?
This is a bridge loan facility that the bank has managed to secure. Definitely what we've been seeing is that they've been facing a lot of the debt financing from short-term loans secured from some of the local banks. I think currently we're seeing about $270 million worth of short-term loans invested in Kenya Airways right now. So this 200 million will start seeing some form of restructuring though it is short term. I do expect that the long-term debt restructuring is in the offing, so that we can be able to start converting those. Definitely there is a concern as to incurring debt on more debt. So in terms of debt sustainability, there is some questions in terms of the long-term plan for that. But hopefully, as they start securing more strategies based on some of the consultants that they're set to hire or have hired, we can be able to start seeing some clarity on that aspect.
Looking at, as we wind up our conversation, we've also seen a lot of, should I say, optimism, as well as it's sort of a mixed reaction kind of a scenario. What should the employees expect? Because you've thrown in a word, restructuring. Are we looking forward to seeing perhaps something happening when it comes to bringing down top management, when it's because we've seen a lot of expenses going up as well in terms of paying the pilots and also senior managers? What does this mean for the airline moving forward? Is it a strategy they might want to consider really?
I wouldn't want to start preempting some of the plans that the management should take, but what I do know is that they are investing in looking for a consultant who can advise them on the Project Mawingu phase, which has been shifted from long-term base, which was over 10 years, to now 5 years. So what they're doing is they're reviewing the entire strategy, which is something that will at least enhance their competitiveness within the region, because we've seen some regional airlines starting to eat into their market share. So definitely a whole turnaround strategy is something that's direly needed in order to start getting this airline to literally take off from the abysmal results that we have seen today. So until we see some solid plans on the table, then we cannot be able to comprehend at least some of the long-term strategies that are in place.
During the press conference, we saw Mbuvi Gunze, who is the CEO, sort of relaxed and composed, saying that they are going to turn around the company. What's your take?
Mbuvi, the CEO, has a wealth of experience, and he has served in various corporations and done well to them. I do think this is a hit, knowing that he's relatively new as a CEO, but he has previously served as CFO in the company. I do think he has a deep insight into the company and can be able to visibly see some of the pertinent issues that need his attention. So I do remain quite optimistic that he can be able to at least come to terms with what needs to be done.
Well, many thanks. We've been speaking to Kevin Tuitek, who is an analyst with Genghis Capital, just helping us break down this issue around how Kenya Airways got itself into this situation, saying that all is not lost. There could be some ray of hope at the end of the day. Well, let's take a quick look at what stories have been making headlines across the country other than the Kenya Airways story. Regional lender Kenya Commercial Bank has actually posted results for this year, posting 13% growth in profits for the first half of the year, driven by increased lending, earnings from new business lines and international business. The bank has announced a net profit of 9.2 billion shillings, supported by a 13% rise in loans and advances, which yielded 15% growth in net interest income. KTN's Charles Gitonga now reports.
Kenya Commercial Bank is firmly in the green, having made a 9.2 billion shillings profit between January and June this year. The bank's performance is attributable to a 31% growth in its loan book to 321 billion shillings, therefore raising its interest income by 15% to 25.8 billion shillings. Customer deposits grew by 26%, 443 billion, as it taps alternative banking channels.
We look at our own investment on SMEs, so entrepreneurs coming to be able to bank with us and run their businesses. Just loans across all sectors: manufacturing, technology, real estate, housing, which is part of real estate, looking at tourism. That area is significantly growing, not just in Kenya, but across the region. But the most exciting part is to see our digital programs, which are running, whether it's on mobile, agency, our merchants as well. And that is a big part of our growth agenda.
The bank has maximized on its digital platforms to, among other things, grow its customer base to 7 million customers and expects to close the year with at least 10 million of them. According to the chief executive, investments in mobile and digital banking are paying dividend, with 69% of all transactions now happening on those platforms.
We have more than 1.4 million customers on our KCB, mobile banking platform itself. So more than half of our customers today are actually preferring a more convenience platform, whether it's your mobile app, whether it's your usual USSD program that you can connect with the bank. And I've been very excited to see you can make your payments today, you can connect with every single part of your bank. And traditionally we're seeing our new generation customers say, I will be with my bank where I am.
The bulk of the group's profit in the half of this year was supported by the Kenyan business up to 90%, followed by South Sudan at 6.9%, Tanzania at 1.4%, Rwanda at 1.3%, Uganda at 0.4%, while the bank's profitability in Burundi registered flat growth. Going forward, the bank plans to grow its footprint in the region and expects to open business in Ethiopia and Mozambique over the next 18 months. Charles Gitonga, KTN News.
Well, KCB is actually one of the biggest movers in today's trading. Now let's cross over to the technology industry. Safaricom has weighed into the dominance debate, saying there is no problem with the company's market leadership, controlling over 70% of the telecom market. Pressure has been mounting from the Ministry of Information, the Communications Authority and telecom rivals to have Safaricom declared dominant, thus resulting in its operations being capped. But appearing before the Senate Committee on Information, Safaricom CEO Bob Collymore, from a different script, the CEO actually argues that rather than just focus on the local market, Safaricom is in competition with global players for survival. The tough-talking CEO underscored the need to build strong local brands that could compete on the international market rather than have its market leadership clipped to compete locally. The controversial dominance rule has gained traction after the Communications Authority of Kenya took the dominance bill to Parliament.
Because if you ask me, who do I compete with? I don't really compete with Wananchi and with Airtel and Orange. I'm competing with Google. And how big do I need to be in order to compete with Google? Because those guys are coming in. And those guys are taking the money. And when they take the money, they also take the taxes out of the country. If you look at other countries, if you look at Sony, if you look at Japan, Japan have their national champions. Sony, JVC, Panasonic. If you look at Korea, the phone that now they can't really make without dropping a call, they built Samsung. They didn't hold them back. They built Samsung, they built LG, they built Hyundai. If you look at America, Microsoft, Google, those guys are not competing in an American market. They're competing in a global market. And for us to stand up, we need to have big national champions.
Well, Safaricom CEO there defending why Safaricom is actually not supposed to be declared dominant, giving examples of other players that have made it in other markets and they have not been declared dominant. Well, let's take a quick look at how the shilling performed against other currencies in our financial report. Well, and that's all we had time for here on KTN Business. Of course, we'll continue keeping an eye for you on how Kenya Airways continues to perform. Will it be making a rebounding streak or not? My name is Abegina. Let's meet tomorrow, where we'll be discussing a little bit more around energy in our Business Today show from 2 to 4 p.m. Do make a date with us. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
A good evening it is, and welcome to today's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahisi. Starting us off, Kenya needs slightly more than $500 million Kenyan shillings to prepare and send off a team of 80 athletes to the Rio Olympics next year. The National Olympics Committee launched the road to Rio on Thursday morning, during which 2 corporate companies pledged to donate a total of 16 million Kenyan shillings.
With only less than 375 days left before Brazil hosts the world's most anticipated sports masterpiece, the Olympics in Rio, and with more than 70% preparations already done, Kenya launched a Road to Rio campaign. It basically means that Kenya can practically start preparing the process of selecting our representatives. Kenya is looking to select a formidable team that will better the 2012 record, where Kenya won 2 gold medals, 4 silver medals and 5 bronze medals. With rugby and golf being among the added sports in the Olympics, Kenya has set a higher medal tally in Rio.
We are projecting 10 gold medals, 9 silvers and 12 bronze. That is our projection. That is what we are working to get. But we took everything with us to London and messed up the team. And we're saying that is behind us and we must focus on moving forward. We're not going to put money in something that is not going to fly.
Track and field, Kenya sure medal hunters will make up the majority of the traveling party. Kenya, however, will line up athletes in 15 disciplines, meaning the number of participants will more than double from past editions.
We need money so that we can be able to train these people, give them part and parcel of their training.
I invite for breakfast some of the leading corporates, and we sell the idea of this Team Kenya to them. Because if you're doing business in Kenya, you must also support Team Kenya.
The qualification process for Rio began on 30th May this year and is expected to be completed by 29th May next year. The World Championships is one of the ways other disciplines will be seeking qualifying standards. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
Once again, Sports Cabinet Secretary Dr. Hassan Wari has put sports federations on the spot, warning them against the use of federations' money to better their personal interests. This is after some federations presented their financial needs to prepare for their teams for the Africa Games set for Congo-Brazzaville in September.
Six months ago, at the time when we were talking about the Sports Act, NOC very quickly came with the Olympic Charter, put it on my table, and said we are very independent. Don't touch us. Don't. We're independent. This is the Olympic Charter. How? You can only be independent. You're not somewhere in the air. And then when it comes to budget, you come to me. How? We should work together. All Africa Games is around the corner. And I realized I was dealing with Taekwondo. They were not throwing the kicks and flying, whatever. But in that meeting room, it was very, you could feel the pressure, 2 groups. And I asked my guys, what's happening? Where did these guys come from? They said, what is it? Taekwondo, yes. They normally come up once every 4 years. Okay, interesting. Every time there's an All-African Games. Why? Because there's little money somewhere. Shame on you.
Federations in need of money indeed. Now shifting gears, Laser Hill Academy from Metropolitan Region defeated Wa High School from Coastal Region 5-1 in boys football to book their place in the semi-finals of the Airtel Rising Stars Secondary School Games. In other match, Kisumu Day thrashed St. Anthony 2-0 to also book their place in the semi-finals, where they will meet Pesenga Boys, who also thrashed Simoto 1-0 to qualify. In girls football, St. John's will face it off with Kobola in the semi-finals after a 1-0 draw with Olympic in the last group match. In girls volleyball, defending champion Kwandanze thrashed Sega Girls 3-0 to book their place in the semi-finals against the Tetu Girls, who also won their game against Gankanga by 3 sets without a reply. Jericho's camp Toyoyo has officially opened its gates to teams that could wish the players to play the matches there. The ground has been in deplorable condition, and the facelift makes the camp Toyoyo the third ground in Kenya, after City Stadium and also Kisumu's Moi Stadium, to get the much needed artificial turf. Deputy President William Ruto opened the grounds and hopes more talented players will be nurtured from the grounds. The government plans to rehabilitate more grounds through the devolved system of government.
Ngoma kama nane juu ya mgonda, lakini sisemi kitu. Anachukua Rocho kwa Paulo Honela, anaangalia wekero wake, anza kuguna kushoto kwake mwenzake yule mjinani, anapiga pasi nyerezi kule.
Mambo ya football katika taifa letu kama serikali tunaitazama kwa macho, kwa sababu tunataka kuhakikisha kwamba wale wanaosimamia mchezo wa football katika taifa letu, they must up their game. Sio kama tunaelewana? Mambo ya football katika taifa letu ya Kenya imerudi chini. Lazima tukubaliane.
Boxing Association of Kenya, BAK, has designed a boxing tournament that was set to start today in the portal city of Mombasa. According to the Boxing Association chairman, John Kameta, the boxing event, which attracted participation from clubs in Uganda, Tanzania and also in Kenya, was not sanctioned by the national governing body. Kameta, who wrote to Mombasa County Commissioner Nelson Marwa notifying him that an unsanctioned boxing sporting event was due to take place. The event is expected to start tomorrow and end on the Sunday. Teams from Tanzania, Uganda and Kenya have already assembled in Mombasa and have intensified their training as the saga unfolds. The Boxing Association Kenya president warned Kenya referees and doctors against participating in the tournament as they risk being banned in future. And with that, we wind up for today's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahisi. Enjoy your night.
KTN Weather, in association with More Team Do. Big Q, in association with Thika School of Medical and Health Sciences.
All right, so tonight we asked you to comment on that loss, that shocking loss from Kenya Airways today. Many of you are trying to do some math on Twitter. Alfred Kombundo, you say a 29 billion shilling loss by KQ cannot be blamed on travel advisories. That's an impossible 290,000 tickets from Europe at $1 a ticket. Mark Obonyo Wicks, you say the CFO plus his manager should have resigned after addressing the media, that media conference. It's embarrassing. George K. Washira, you say this is economic terrorism and sabotage. At Sedon 3, you say Ethiopian Airlines modernized its fleet too. Their prices are lower and they are profitable. Mismanagement at KQ is what led to the loss. On our SMS feed tonight, 22155, Suman Damwe at CPA, you say, give me the job. My quick fixes: review existing strategic partners, renegotiate terms, review prices and routes, enter forward contracts to lock fuel prices. Impossible losses is not where KQ stops, but rather the beginning to overcome excuses. Those are your views tonight. Keep them coming in as we'll continue to keep our eye on the situation at KQ. Didn't have a good day at the stocks today. Those are your views on our Big Q tonight.
Enroll with us today in any of our branches countrywide. Thika School of Medical and Health Sciences, nurturing professional excellence.
Thank you so much for watching KTN Prime tonight and for your feedback. We value that. What do I need to remind you of? Yes, coming up after this is Jeff Koinange live on both KTN Home and KTN News, and he's featuring Sauti Soul tonight. I'm pretty sure top on the agenda is that awesome night they had at State House when they danced with both President Uhuru Kenyatta and President Barack Obama. Thanks for watching tonight. My name is Yvonne Okwara Matole. We'll see you again soon.